with an AEW and WWE star getting into an online altercation and a spoiler for the Day 1 pay-per-view. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report for December 18th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at WrestlingHubOfficial and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Following Survivor Series, Austin Theory has been seen on programming with Vince McMahon. With him thought to be a potential breakout star, Theory revealed to the Mirror UK one of the biggest lessons he's learned from the WWE chairman. So I think those ideas came around because I stole $100 million egg. These lessons that Vince is teaching me, I don't think he would have taught me in this way if I didn't do what I did. I think everything happens for a reason. I'm not telling anyone to steal a $100 million egg or even $1 million egg, but somehow it worked out for me. I'm getting a lot of knowledge, and the biggest takeaway from Mr. McMahon is to expect the unexpected. For AEW Rampage, the son of ECW legend Taz, Hook, made his long-awaited in-ring debut as he defeated Fuego del Sol. While many fans were excited for this match, a critic of AEW even found this debut impressive, as Jim Cornette had this to say about it on his podcast. "I am not necessarily saying this was the greatest debut in pro wrestling history or as good as Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania 34, which had a lot more high-priced talent involved and had a lot more rehearsal. However, I said on the show a few months ago, you never get to see anybody anymore that when you first see them you're like, oh wow, like you would before everything was put on the internet. You could always find a wrestler who can surprise you, but in this case they managed to do it because, if anything, from the way he was just hanging around a couple of months ago, he got physical and threw a few kicks, but it didn't do much for him. You lowered expectations for him. All of a sudden he is better than expected and people are getting into it, so it was a combination of a really good debut, and he's got a lot of talent and has a lot of oomph to him, to his personality, and people are just surprised because it was better than they thought it was going to be. I really enjoyed it." Hook already has another opponent set up for him, as Tony Khan wrote. "Thanks to Taz and Hook, this Christmas AEW Rampage, I'm giving the world the gift of Hook. It will be a much bigger test. Hook versus Bear Bronson on Saturday night, December 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern, as part of a huge Christmas night Rampage at a special night and time." Deonna Purrazzo had worked on NXT from 2018 up until her release from WWE last year. She would end up in Impact Wrestling afterwards, where she'd have 2 reigns as Knockout Champion. Speaking on the Two-Man Power Trip of Wrestling podcast, she recalled her time in WWE, saying, I was definitely labeled as a problem. I was definitely labeled as someone who has a loud mouth, but for a long time I wanted to check every box. I pitched losing and making that a thing until I snap, you know what I mean? I pitched I don't even need to win the match. Let me just keep the armbar and get disqualified, and that can set up a feud with this babyface, and I would do extra promos and film stuff at home. I really can say at the end of the day I put every bit of me into that place to make it work, and it didn't, because when I feel taken advantage of or I feel like I'm not wanted, then I have an opinion about it, and I'm going to stand up for myself, and I'm going to advocate for myself, and I don't necessarily think at the time that was what they wanted out of talent." At the Hard to Kill event, Purrazzo will be facing Mickie James in a rematch over the Knockouts title. While Bret Hart is seen as an all-time great in pro wrestling, it may surprise you to know that he was embarrassed about entering the business, as he told the Calgary Sun. "When I got into wrestling, I never had any idea that I would be in this kind of a situation where people were celebrating my impact as a pro wrestler. When I got into wrestling, it was considered just a step up above topless dancing. I remember being kind of embarrassed in those days. I remember I'd been wrestling for my dad for about 3 weeks. I met a girl I knew at a shopping mall. She asked, 'So what are you doing these days?' I said, 'Well, I'm working for my dad nowadays. I'm a wrestler.' I remember she looked at me and said, 'I'm so disappointed. You had so much more potential to be something much bigger than that. I'm a pro wrestler now, whether you like it or not.'" Despite many thinking Kevin Owens would end up leaving WWE after his contract expired in January, he has re-signed to a multi-year deal with the company. While Dave Meltzer has mentioned that having a high salary contract could lead to Owens getting released more easily, Jim Cornette took to his podcast saying he agreed with KO's decision. My thoughts are that apparently his old friends simply were not as persuasive as the large amount of money that Vince McMahon decided to kick in his direction. I do think he may have made a good decision, especially because now it has become ridiculous, and WWE is losing several talents to AEW. It is not as if Kevin Steen does not want to be a pain in the rear about negotiation over anything. Whether it's a parking spot, what to eat for lunch, I bet you he had jacked WWE out of considerable cash to not go over there and play with all the rest of his friends, as he should have. Let's see if his negotiating tactic goes well and if creative gets any better, or if he will be miserable but highly paid for the next however many years. For the Day 1 pay-per-view, Kevin Owens is taking part in the WWE title match against Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, and the champion Big E. Back when CM Punk made his return to pro wrestling and debut for AEW, Roman Reigns called him out on BT Sports, saying he is not really a needle mover. When it comes down to it, CM Punk was not as good or over as John Cena. He wasn't as good or as over and moved the needle like The Rock. It was what it was. From a full-time performer, I understand the frustration of wanting more, but like I said before, you gotta take it. I'm a full-time performer, but I've done everything that needs to be done to stay in this position, to be in this position, to continue to make the opportunity for myself, to be in the main event of SummerSlam against John Cena. Now, the Needle Mover Roman Reigns shirt is available on WWEshop.com. With his friend Kevin Owens re-signing with WWE, it has been reported that Zayn has probably inked a new deal as well. There are many that would love to see Zayn appear for AEW, but wrestling legend Dutch Mantel believes that would not be the best move. I would want him to stay with WWE because I do not believe AEW even discovered Sami Zayn. We know what he can do in his interviews. When you send him out there, he makes the best out of what is given to him. I think if he goes to AEW, he would just be another name on a long list. He might make money there, but not actually do anything there. He only got so many slots. With Ring of Honor temporarily closing up shop to reinvent themselves, the company would release all their wrestling talent. This has led to some fans thinking the company will shut down for good, as ROH COO Joe Koff touched on this rumor, saying this on the ROH Strong podcast. What seeped into the narrative is that we were shutting down, when all we announced is that we were not doing any live events in the first quarter. We never used the words shutting down. With the Day 1 pay-per-view coming up, Smackdown is set to see a gauntlet match to determine the #1 contender to the IC title. Now, this episode was already taped, so if you don't want anything spoiled, go ahead and skip forward. The 12 Days of Christmas gauntlet saw Sami Zayn in the end eliminate Ricochet to win, as he will be facing Nakamura for the IC title at Day 1. Also on Smackdown, Charlotte Flair successfully defended her women's title against Toni Storm, while Drew McIntyre and the New Day beat the Usos and Madcap Moss in a Christmas Eve street fight. On NXT, Cora Jade is making a name for herself as she is in a feud with the women's champion Mandy Rose. Since Cora can be seen coming to the ring on a skateboard, this prompted AEW star Darby Allin to comment on Jade's character, as he took to Twitter to write, "Skating is a huge part of my life, not a fake character for TV." Jade would reply, bringing up Allin being accused during the Speaking Out movement. "Being a good person with no abuse allegations against me is a huge part of my life, and not just a character I play on TV." Both these posts have since been deleted, but not before many took notice. With reactions to this, one user wrote, "Oh cool, Darby Allin is trending. Something cool must have happened and Winter is coming. Nope, it's just him getting bodied by a 20-year-old NXT star." Another fan wrote, "I stopped paying attention for like 20 minutes and Darby Allin is getting hatred left and right while Cora Jade is a hero. What on earth happened?" After having success in a tag team on NXT, Shane Thorne would find himself on Raw with the Retribution stable. He was taken off TV and recently released last month, as he's now taken to Twitter to post a video revealing he is retired from sports entertainment and is returning to pro wrestling.
So it's the end of the year, a perfect time to reflect, take stock, maybe think about the future a little bit. Now, as I do that, as I sit in this nice place, knowing I have a wonderful, amazing girl and these two adorable puppies, I gotta think, man, life's pretty good. And the last 5 years in entertainment have been very good to me. So I think I'm done. I think I'm done with that. But now it's time to get back to what I do best, and that's why I'm here to announce in 2022 I am coming out of retirement and back to the world of professional wrestling. Yes! Are you excited? You girls excited? They don't care, but I hope you care. So, where? When? I don't know. I haven't thought that far ahead yet. But keep watching this and my other social medias. Next year, I'm going to put links and emails to where to book me, where to find me. Yes, that's right. Shane Hayes, Professional Wrestler, Take 2, starting 2022.
While it was mentioned during one of Sammy Guevara's blogs that fans think he and Conti are more than friends, Conti began trending on Twitter after Sammy apparently broke up with his fiancé. There were a ton of reactions as fans are convinced the two are together. With AEW continuing to be a force in pro wrestling on cable, Tony Khan has taken to Twitter to call out Fox News for not being able to keep up with his promotion and ratings. Hey Fox News, it's amusing hearing you opining about AEW ratings considering Dynamite on Wednesday has beaten every single Fox News show for 6 straight weeks. On Smackdown, Happy Corbin and Madcap Moss hosted Happy Talk as they tried to remove Drew McIntyre's sword from Adam Pearce's desk that they stole last week. McIntyre would eventually run them off before getting his sword back. Dutch Mantel spoke about this segment with Sportskeeda. That's the worst in-ring segment I've ever seen. These jokes bombed. I didn't even know what he was talking about. It was just a bad in-ring segment. Even McIntyre coming out at the end couldn't save it. It is what it is, and it sucked. The top of the hour is where you don't want to lose them, because that's when they are switching. But I think when they saw Madcap and Corbin come out, they switched before the top of the hour. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.